Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I got some World War III related stuff. JoJo Magoo Gaff and weird stuff with Nancy Pelosi and just all of it, right? Some more substance in terms of World War III coming, but let's start here with this Kanye West, Pete Davidson thing. Every day there's more stuff for this, but to start off with, Kourtney Kardashian. IVF medication put me into menopause. What? Kourtney Kardashian says medication she took to try to get pregnant via in vitro fertilization caused severe side effects like weight gain and menopause symptoms. And she's 42, so I don't know what's going on, right? There's just a lot of weird stuff going on with this family, right? They're just, a lot of drama. And I guess this is, I don't know which one she is. Kourtney, apparently. Kourtney's in menopause, so. Then one of my viewers sent me this morning.
Oh, my God.
On Sunday, eagle-eyed fans noticed a tattoo on the Saturday Night Live star's chest spelling out Kim.
Here, they were searching this poorly done photo, and there's a Kim now, really close to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I got more on his tattoos, this ghoulish, inked-up MNFer, but somebody spotted this, and he's got a Kim tattoo now. It must be true love, right? Kanye West worried Pete Davidson will get Kim hooked on drugs. So he went on an Instaghoul tirade. Here it starts here. It says, Pete Davidson engages audience with jokes about having sex with a baby. Yet another reason why Skeet got to stay away from my children. And nobody noticed that he ain't show up to SNL because Mr. I can help you with Mr. I Can Help You with Meds had a mental breakdown after we ran him off the internet. Skeet, you not built for this. I already blacked the Super Bowl out on you. Apologize to your family for being in your family. And so there's that. So apparently this is true. Pete Davidson, there's multiple headlines you can search if you want to find out what the joke said. I'm not going to repeat it here because it's just creepy, but, it's Skeet Davidson. And then it says here, the way Skeet used Kim's marital status to address Kanye was a sneak diss towards her, and she didn't even catch it, so this is somebody said that. I'm really concerned that Skeet will get my kid's mom hooked on drugs. He's in rehab every 2 months. Well, he does do a lot of drugs, right? There's a video out there with him, like it's a music video of him and Machine Gun Kelly. And they are stripping down and doing shrooms, and they end up going into the hotel fountain and get kicked out by the hotel security, like really, childish stuff. But Pete Davidson is an avid pot smoker, and he does a lot of other drugs. And he's on, psychological medication. So, this is a legitimate concern, right? Because he's kind of a degenerate. But I forgot this write-up, and I talked about this yesterday extensively, that Hillary Clinton is in a club that is, according to the official story of, what Pete Davidson's life is, that he had a dad that was lost in a tragic event in New York in 2001, and she belongs to a club that is more than likely responsible for that event, and he's tramp stamped himself. Tramp stamp Pete the Tramp. Here's the stamp. Pete Davidson wanted to get Hillary Clinton a Christmas gift, so I got a tattoo of my hero. Thanks for being such a badass and one of the strongest people in the universe. And so this is on his leg, right? And, Kanye's working this angle. You all ready for Coachella? Because he's going after Pete Davidson. So I got all these old Kanye videos popping up on my phone. And remember, I covered this quite extensively when he had that rant where he was on stage and he said, Jay's. So what's great about that, if you listen to the beginning of the rant, the crowd's with him. And then he's like 10 minutes in, they're like, wait, he isn't going to perform, is he? In Sacramento. And so he talks about this. He's been talking about this a lot, about how they, put him on drugs. And I'm going to go back to this old TMZ. And this TMZ, where he addressed the TMZ staff comes up. And he talks about them medicating him and trying to take his creativity away from him. And so he's been, talking about this now more recently. And what happened was he went on this, so-called rant, and they hospitalized him, and they medicated him, and he came out with blonde hair, which is often what happens. Either a shaved head. You see this with women like Britney Spears. They have these, meltdowns, and they go to these reprogramming centers, whatever you want to call them, and they medicate them, and they handle them, and they get them back under control. And he addressed this with this interview with Charlemagne the God, or whatever he's called. And he's talking about, first Jay-Z did a line in a song where he said something to the effect that I gave Kanye $20 million and he gave me 20 minutes on stage. And what that was reference to was that Kanye was $56 million in debt. You remember that? Now he's a billionaire, so that sort of turned around for him. But he was in $56 million in debt. And he talked about this somewhere recently, where they always get these artists in debt. And, there's a whole way that they take these musicians and addict them to a lifestyle that they're getting on advances from the record companies. And so the record companies give them crappy deals. And, they own the artist, right? And the artist is really in debt, but they have these lavish lifestyles, and then they sort of are broke at the end of it, and they don't have any of the rights to their music, all these things. I've talked about this before. And so, Kanye says that he was in debt, and Jay-Z had to co-sign $20 million, money for Kanye to do these concerts, and Kanye had this reaction. This was what he said about it.
It just put me under a bit more of a kind of controlled situation. It's like, and I'm only acting out of love. I don't need to be controlled. I just need to be inspired and informed.
That's the blonde hair he was rocking after going to the treatment center. But him using the word controlled, we'll get into the medication in a moment, and then all this stuff to do with Skeet and them, right? Because a lot of this is about a medication war. Like, we've had these disputes in families over COVID and the you-know-what, right? You have families who, over this one issue, are like, can't sit down at a dinner table or Thanksgiving or something. I mean, this is where, especially the younger generation being more, more programmable and just listening whattever the mainstream media, whatever it might be. It's not always the case, but that's the case here. It's like the opposite of the 60s, where the older generation is now more sort of radical and more anti-establishment. The younger generation is just so beat down by, their internet programming. And in a weird way, this is sort of the battle where it's who's crazier. Now, the mainstream media and all the powers that be are saying Kanye's crazy, but he's not the one on medication. He's not the one with a Hillary Clinton tattoo. He's not the one with, 10 pounds of silicone in his ass, right? He's somebody who's and look at the difference between what Kanye's produced and whether you like him or not. Like I have, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of Kanye's songs on my iPhone. Like he's got, to me, brilliant, brilliant musical content. And he's had so many great moments that, like I've said before, he always makes the show better. When he shows up, that Katrina thing with George W. Bush, I have a whole, compilation somewhere. I gotta get that, but I'm not gonna put it in here. But he makes things better. What has Kim done? She was in a sex tape, and then she put out a soul-sucking reality TV show, and just gets more and more plastic surgery. And Pete Davidson, like the guy's not funny, right? He's a comedian. He's not funny, and he just schools around, banging these so-called, female celebrities, female in, air quotes, right? And so, Kanye's definitely produced more quality content and is much better character in the show. That's, based in opinion. And he's the one not on drugs. He's the one who's anti-drugs, right? Says it kills his creativity, and we'll talk about that again in a moment. And, these guys represent something else. So let's go to the end of this interview. He says something that shows some level of self-perception.
And then that one thing happens, and another thing happens, another thing happens, another thing happens. And you just start coming up with all type of crazy ideas in your head and stuff. Like, why? And obviously it's me. I'm like wild out personality and stuff. I'm like the cousin you can't bring nowhere, all this type of stuff.
The cousin you can't bring nowhere. So this demonstrates Kanye having some ability to self-perceive, because I think people think that he doesn't know how he comes off. I know he knows how he comes off because he's constantly deleting shit, right? He posts things and a day later deletes them. And he's talked about this before. He went on Jimmy Kimmel's when they had a thing some years ago and addressed this. And it's great for me because I like when Kanye goes full Kanye. But it's not great for Kanye. And this is what I say about the truth community, because they want to make Kanye crazy the same way they want to make truthers crazy. And so you don't want to go full Kanye. You want to hit the pause button, as Master Charger used to always say in the Heartfulness meditation, that you have a emotional reaction, right? There was a time that Master Chargy went to see Babaji, who was his, beloved spiritual master. And he's, coming into maybe it was Babaji staying in a hotel or somebody's house, and there's like on a balcony. And Chargy looked up, and Babaji was looking at him, and Babaji turned away immediately and went inside. And, this is how life is often, because people's minds run amok, and, you think things are happening that they're not, right? Because there's a lack of communication or understanding. But Chargy was deeply hurt because he was doing all this work for the mission and all this work for Babaji. And he thought Babaji was like pissed at him, right? And Babaji said, I got so happy when I saw you, I turned away, because when I'm, emotional, I shouldn't do spiritual work, right? Like I shouldn't, There was a guy that was so great, Babaji raised him like 7 spiritual points. And Lalaji said, what are you doing? Like intercommune with him. This is part of the heartfulness, for those who are familiar with my heartfulness stories, right? And so Lalaji, who was, a disembodied soul, intercommune with Babaji, said, what are you doing? And there's these spiritual points in the heartfulness system. He said, you're going to kill this guy. And he said, oh, but the guy's so great, I want to, And the guy said to Babaji, like afterwards, he said to Babaji, yeah, I've had a headache for like 4 months because he wasn't able to, all the spiritual points that he was raised. It takes time to adjust. So when you're in some sort of a conflict, your belly you get a fear reaction in your belly, or you feel something, you feel a little bit rattled, your heart rate goes up, you get this flight or flight response when your world's falling apart. And, it's good to just let that pass before you make any decisions. And like, I don't make videos when I'm in some sort of emotion. Like I don't get emotional to these things I talk about, right? But if I did, if I'm triggered, I don't make a video, because you're going to say things in a way that's going to make you sound crazy when you're emoting. But if you might be spot on in the things that you're observing, but if you just wait till you calm down, you can say them in a much calmer way. And in the Heartfulness, I'm going to go to make a Heartfulness video either today or tomorrow because there's been some changes to the YouTube channel. And Dodgy, the current master of the system, was talking about how the first master of the system talked in a very calm manner as not to bring emotions and, lower level emotions. I've talked about this before. You have your gut. Like your gut is your lower level emotions of fear and, anger and, all these other things, hatred and, all these other greed and lust and all these things. They exist in your gut, right? In terms of your spiritual energy, you have a gut level intelligence, right? There's all these nerve endings and things in your gut, and there's your gut intelligence, and then there's your brain intelligence, which is like a computer and more analytical, right? More unfeeling, right? Just thoughts and rational processing, and then there's your heart, which is the higher level feelings of love. It's where you connect to God, and you have compassion, and your deeper level feelings, right? Feelings versus emotions. And, Kanye's like a gut person. And when you're a gut person, you got to like sort of balance yourself out before you speak on things like he's doing here. And that way you don't get yourself in trouble, right? Because they're looking for him. They want to label him crazy. And they either want to medicate him and control him, or they want to use him as the same thing with Trump. Like, this is why I like Trump and Kanye more than these other people, because they're more honest about who they are. They're not, reading from some script. I mean, Kanye admitted to playing a role, and Trump played a role, certainly. But they're more real. They're more authentic. And even though it's not, what I agree with in different ways in terms of some of the stuff they present, at least it's more real. Like, they're more, these fake plastic people, right? That great song by Radiohead, Plastic Trees, I think it's called. It's on my playlist. I like the live version. But anyways, so I want to get to this TMZ thing, but there's been a bunch of developments. This video is sort of in a fluid, like there's things that are coming in. Zelensky just called out JoJo Magoo, and, there's World War IV stuff, 3 stuff coming, and 4 stuff. World War III is a lot closer than, it's inching closer and closer day by day. But let's go to this TMZ clip.
2 days before I was in the hospital, I was on opioids. I was addicted to opioids.
So this is the same time period. He's talking about when he got, there's a couple of times he got, sent to one of these reprogramming centers. And he talks about that he got liposuction and he started to take, OxyContin or whatever it is, right?
I got liposuction because I didn't want y'all to call me fat like y'all called Rob at the wedding and made him fly home before me and Kim got married.
So this is also interesting because he said the feud with Jay-Z began when Jay-Z didn't go to his wedding with, Kim. You think about how Kim has affected Kanye. Like, Kanye has been in reprogramming centers twice. He went broke in the beginning, right? And, he's been in trouble. Like, he's been on the wrong side of the media ever since, whether this relationship is fake and staged, whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to call it, it hasn't gone well for him. He's been kind of a mess. And, he's constantly having these rants and things. And then all this other stuff happened too. All the things he's talking about here, where he was addicted to drugs and all that stuff. But he said, Rob, we need more Rob. Like, you hear about all the other Kardashians, but like, what about Rob? Did Rob quit the show? Remember, he was dating that girl that looked like some sort of, well, they all look like dolls. But anyway, but Rob was called fat by these TMZ guys, so he left their wedding. And Kanye said he didn't want to be called fat, so he got some lipo and then got addicted to opioids.
This to me said, this is used to kill genius, right? So I didn't take it. 2 days later, I'm in the hospital. I was taking 2 pills a day at that time. When I left the hospital, how many pills you think I was given? 7.
So what he's saying there is that he was given he was taking 2 pills a day from liposuction. And then his drug dealer said, this kills creativity. So his drug dealer, who, this is some guy, he says, that would get him drugs or whatever it was. And his drug dealer said, they use this to kill genius. And then he went to the reprogramming center. He got off the opioids, and then they started to give him 7 pills a day. And, he was in a drug state. And he said that when he was saying all these things. And this was, there was an influence of the family, the so-called family, Kardashian family, that when he went on these rants, they tried to get him into these facilities, right? And so, again, is Kanye doing anything criminal? Like, what's the problem with what Kanye is doing? His words. Same thing with Trump, because Trump didn't do anything. Like, the Trumpers don't get it. Like, Trump just got worked. And again, I like Trump as a character, and he was probably my favorite president just based on, I got a lot of great, happy moments from the Trump presidency. But in terms of the policies, they push through all this agenda, like on a comprehensive, sweeping, like neoliberal agenda, right? That they push through, not real liberalism. This is fake liberalism. And they push through all this stuff because of the hatred of Trump. And Trump just tweeted. Like, Trump even said, like, at the end, after the whole election debacle, he was like, what way is this to run a country, right? Which was another classic Trump tweet. But Kanye and Trump, all they did was say things that didn't go along. They say things that don't go along with the controlling plan, the controller's plan, right? And when they do that, they are demonized. And anybody who doesn't, knuckle under and just recite the mantras of this, demonic, last second ditch effort, this Hail Mary to save a collapsing civilization, is thrown under the bus, right? And so for me, if you look at like the Kardashian family and all they represent, like, that's insanity, unwatchable insanity, fake plastic, robotic, the Barbie doll insanity. And Pete Davidson, unfunny comedian. Like, if he was a little bit funny, I would say it, right? I like to laugh. I don't, think he's a good comedian. He doesn't have a good delivery, doesn't say funny things, but he represents the lost young males, sort of the same way the recent Joker movie, represent these, ghoulish young men who are like, low on life force and testosterone and prana, like the life creative force, and they're zombieing their way through life. And they're like, hey, Pete Davidson can, get a starlet, right? And so, like, he represents hope for them, but it's, he's just like one of these Judas goats that are leading the sheep to slaughter. But anyways, I spent a lot more time on this than I was originally gonna. Let's move towards, I think I have a Britney thing to do here coming up. And this is the editing portion. And then we'll get into World War III. But you need Britney to kick off World War III. Bob Saget seen smiling hours before death in final fan photo. That's not a smile. And so somebody got a selfie with Bob Saget, and Bob Saget, is this guy the murderer, right? Doesn't look like doesn't have the eyes of a killer. Bob Saget appeared to be in good spirits just hours before the unexpected death at the Orlando Ritz-Carlton. I talked about this yesterday. The story's, basically been killed by his family and the judge in Florida who ruled to suppress all the evidence from going out on the internet. Okay, so one of my viewers sent me this. People are always trying to get me back into Britney land. Like, all my viewers, like, I have a bunch of viewers that keep on sending me Britney land stuff. They keep on trying to suck me back into Britney land. But here's her speeded up. Look at her go. Look at her go. She's fast forwarding. Look at her go. Look at those moves. She's got that. Do a spin. Do my hair. I'm rowing a boat. Smacking myself in the head. Doing that one. bending backwards. Well, I'm spinning. I like to spin really fast. I get dizzy. Spin, I do that. Spin, spin, spin. Look there. Boom, boom, bam, ding, ding, down, down, look down. But to play the drums, I got to play the drums. Play the drums. Got to move my arms. Play the drums. I got to spin my hair. You got to speed it up. Touchdown. Well, now I get sultry. I get sultry. I'm getting sultry. Look at and she's fat. Gotta do that. Goes, hey, point my gun. But go shoot you. Go shoot you. Shoot. Boom, bang, bang, boom, boom, bang, boom. Got my guns. Boom. I got guns. Got my guns here. Boom, got my guns. With my hair around. Boom, 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 boom. Got my guns. Doing that one. Somebody close that door behind me. See, the door's distracting me. I'm gonna spin into. Oh, there we go. Change an outfit. Quick outfit change. But still speed it up. I'm gonna go this world. Gonna bend, got that one here. Give myself a hug. I give myself a hug. Then spread my arms so that I can fly. Go there. Do my namaste. And then I'm doing a prayer. And I point my fingers at you. And I got claws. I got tiger claws. I gotta do that. All right. And so there's a speeded up Britney. Iran attacks Iraq's Erbil with missiles and warning to U.S. and allies. And so this is a concern from Reuters. 12 missiles hit Erbil, some land near U.S. consulate. Missiles caused only material damage, one civilian injured. No damage to U.S. facility, U.S. State Department spokesman said. And so Iran has shot off some missiles. And, this is all started when Russia blocked America from going into Iran. Remember, this was, they stopped them in Syria by bombing, ISIS. Remember all that stuff. I've covered that in past videos. And so America was war blocked by Putin. And so they didn't like that at all. And so then this new heated the Cold War revival started. Which brings us to Nancy, Fire Marshal Schill here. One of my viewers sent me this.
But they know that we can't go there. Putin is...
Putin? Listen to the way she says Putin.
Putin is trying to bait the trap so that...
He's trying to bait the trap. Listen to her say it again. It's great. Putin is trying to bait the trap.
Putin is trying to bait the traps.
Spit it out, Nancy.
So that we go in, and that's could be the beginning of World War III.
What? Don't be talking about World War III, Fire Marshal Schill. What is going on with Nancy?
Putin totally irresponsible using weapons that are not allowed under the Geneva Convention.
Putin. It's Putin's war. Putin.
Putin, who threatens use of chemical weapons, nuclear, and the rest.
So he's baiting them into World War III. That's what she says. Like, Putin wants World War III. Putin wants nuclear war. Even though Putin's been around for, I don't know, what is it, like 20, 30 years? I mean, he's been around forever. And there's never been any hint of him wanting nuclear war. And so all of a sudden he wants nuclear war? Is that what you're saying? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. There was no hint of him wanting nuclear war or any kind of war, World War III. The only thing that happened was when America was going on that so-called Arab Spring and was just going in all these countries in the Middle East and doing regime change, and he has an alliance with Iran, and they were going into Syria, and Putin interfered in Syria, and America was pissed, especially Hillary Clinton. And they were all pissed, and they all started talking about, World War III with Putin, and then stuff with Trump, and then Putin. And all of a sudden now Putin wants World War III. Well, it doesn't look that way to anybody who's sort of, semi-awake.
So they know that we can't, but it's the ask. Now, he was this morning more, if we can't have a no-fly zone, let us have our own, and we need the airplanes to come in. No. This morning he was less on the ask for the policy, more on let us do it help us get the planes. But also, there is a school of thought that thinks the anti-aircraft missiles and the rest are a very important way. Myself, when I see that...
She's a real war ass. You got risk. Where's your risk game, Nancy?
Those tanks, that 40 miles of tanks.
40 miles of tanks. They got like a bottomless cup of tanks.
I'd like to take out those tanks. I mean,
She'd like to take out them tanks. She don't care. Let's take out them tanks.
think that them having more planes might be useful, but that I'm not a military strategist.
You're not? Well, you sound pretty like an expert.
We hope that we will be able to get up to a place. I hope. You asked me how. I hope that we can get to a place where the MiGs, which are the kinds of planes they've been trained on, can go to Ukraine. The F-16s, especially if we have an excess of them, can backfill.
Sure, just give them a bunch of our, $18 million plane, whatever it is, right? Give them a bunch of our military. We have excess of military planes. Just give them to Ukraine so they can take out them 40 miles of tanks.
Poland.
Nancy. Okay, that's Nancy. World War III, Nancy, Fire Marshal Schill. Voldemort Zelensky says Ukraine won't join NATO. So this was the real reason. Remember, Putin went to France, and he talked to whatever the guy's name over there. I forget. I don't care. Don't tell me. Don't need to know. And he said in a speech, it was problematic that the Ukraine was going to join NATO because that meant World War III, legitimate World War III. That it meant that Ukraine could do anything to Russia, and Russia, if Russia retaliated, it would start World War III. And so he did not want all these missiles and, same thing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, Zelensky says Ukraine must recognize it will not join NATO. So this is him, Zelensky, realizing the only way to get Russia out of there is to not join NATO, which they could have done before this because he went and said that, Putin said this publicly, like this was the big issue. And so he didn't want these missiles and things on his doorstep. And so anybody can understand that if, let's say you had a neighbor and you had like a little dog and it was a yapper and the neighbor hated your little dog and the neighbor got like a Rottweiler and it was like loosely chained and it was barking at your little dog now. And the Rottweiler was like, at the fence all day barking at your little dog, right? It would suck for you. And their neighbor doesn't like dogs. He got that one dog, the Rottweiler, just to, intimidate your dog or something. Like, it's just, you don't want to have somebody that's like on your border with hostile intentions, with whatever it is. And so if the Ukraine was part of NATO, they would have all these missile bases and all these things there, and would put Russia in a vulnerable position, especially since the U.S. has been demonizing Putin, and we see how the U.S. has been handling leaders like Gaddafi in Libya, and some of these other leaders, right, and countries that don't go along with their agenda, and so that's why there's this conflict. Like they say, Putin just wants World War III. Putin's just when you hear the rhetoric, right, you think, oh, it's really bad. Like, Putin's a really bad person. But for years, he didn't want, and I don't know Putin, don't care about Putin, whatever, Russia. I know the people are suffering there. They don't have a good, material life. They don't have as many, perks and privileges as we do in the U.S. or whatever. From people I know who are Russian that do the heartfulness meditation, right? So there would be these Russians and Ukrainians, and they talk the same language and they get along fine as people in the ashram, in India, the people that I met there, right? But, in terms of Putin's like not wanting World War III, why does he all of a sudden want it? Like, why is he pushing for it? You think he wants to take over Europe? That's ridiculous, right? Like he wants the Ukraine not to be a threat to his country. But it's not just Putin's fault. It's, somebody else's fault as well.
One person with unique insight into all of this is Marie Yovanovitch. She was removed from her post as U.S. ambassador to Ukraine after a smear campaign led by allies of former President Trump This morning, she is out with a new book that's prescient on many levels. Obviously, written before the Russian invasion, Yovanovitch warned, quote,
It's convenient.
"We have failed to call out Russia's behavior in a way that Russia finds persuasive or taken steps to stop it that Moscow finds compelling. If we continue to fumble around, we will someday, maybe soon, find ourselves in a serious confrontation in a context not of our choosing and not to our advantage." Joining me now is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and author of the new book, Lessons from the Edge, Ambassador Marie.
Lessons to the Edge, like Postcards from the Edge, which was Carrie Fisher's book. You know, Carrie Fisher, whose ashes now rest in a giant plastic Prozac pill. No, I ask you not. They put her ashes in it. She had a giant plastic Prozac pill because she loved her Prozac.
Yovanovitch, Ambassador, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ambassador.
You write that Putin needs to be met with a closed fist, and too often over the last decades, he's been met with an open hand. Is what's happening now?
He needs to be met with a closed fist. No open hands anymore. He needs closed fists.
Is the world resistance to this meeting him with a closed fist?
I think that the Biden administration, the international community has done a lot. The response has been good, but I think we need to do more. I think we need to be creative about how we can provide greater assistance,
Maybe just more American dollars dumped into Ukraine. You know, buy my book and, and let's see how much money we can loot from the American people, what's left of a, collapsing system, and let's dump $1 trillion. Let's just throw $1 trillion into Ukraine. We'll close a fist in there. We'll close our fist around a bunch of cash and, get Hunter Biden like a new crack pipe. Come on, let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's get a lot of money. We need a closed fist where we can close our fist around $1 trillion of American, it's just American debt. Like, who cares? What's another $1 trillion in American debt? Let's give them a bunch of planes, whatever it is, whatever it takes. Close our fist around the American economic throat. Let's just do it. But here's the big news right here.
Core closely, got to know you, obviously, during President Trump's first impeachment trial and know your plight, really, where you were pushed out by this smear campaign from allies of President Trump. To what extent
smear campaign
do you think that affected Vladimir Putin, or how did that episode?
Here's the big reveal of it's Trump's fault. Trump's fault. This is, there was a hearing and they had this guy on, some general. I don't know. I couldn't find it, but I was watching it the other day, 2-3 days ago. They had some kind of hearing. Guy was testifying how Trump emboldened Putin and it's all Trump's fault, right? Even though this has happened under JoJo Magoo. The war is happening under Magoo, not Trump, right? JoJo Magoo came out and was talking, strong to Putin, right? He's talking crap to Putin. We saw all that for the G8 and other places. He's been, they were threatening Russia in various ways and punished Russia with something. So JoJo Magoo's had 2 years to put Putin in his place, and he's been trying to, right? And they've been all about Russia, Russia, Russia. And if Trump was president, this wouldn't be happening because Trump was trying to withdraw from NATO. Trump didn't want to be the world's police, didn't want to, protect Europe from whatever was going on there and be a one-sided, that's, the reality of the thing. This is about NATO. And so if Trump was the president right now, this war wouldn't be happening, regardless of what anybody wants to think about it.
In some way influenced, or did it, what we're seeing now?
Well, I think it emboldened Putin because he could see that in the mind of the former president, Ukraine was just a pawn, and he was willing to use it.
Yeah, and now they're not a pawn. Now they're recognized as a full-fledged, powerful nation, and they're not being pawned by Europe and America here.
To promote his own personal and political interests rather than the national good, our national security interests.
Trump's fault. All right. So we know that they were going to blame Trump as well because they, can't take responsibility for JoJo Magoo being JoJo Magoo and them running this agenda through a dilapidated president. Putin has fallen into the dictator trap.
His future how does the rest of the world re-engage with him and Russia whenever this conflict might end? Or are they now, going forward, as long as he's in charge, Cuba or North Korea?
Well, I think the first thing is we need to dispel the myth of what Donald Trump called the savvy genius strongman.
Okay, first of all, Trump's fault.
This is not a savvy genius. He's not behaving like a savvy genius. He's irrational.
You know, this is, to me, just a show, right? The whole thing. It's just a show. I make fun of it, whatever it is. Like, it's, I mean, on a larger scale, we're in some sort of, like, what it used to be called, and it's in Sanskrit, was Maya, that the Earth is illusion. Three-dimensional life on planet Earth is illusionary. We have a soul that's, you know, our real essence. And this is, you know, we're more or less like an avatar here. On some three-dimensional simulation, we come down and manifest physical life. So everything on planet Earth is illusionary, even though it seems physical and tangible, that it is, you know, like a video game. And so there's that bigger show, and then there's this show that they put on. And so I don't know what's true or not true. But Putin has a reasonable explanation for going into Ukraine, which is them joining NATO, which I cover in every video. And just say that, right? Because it makes you sound, to anybody with a brain, anybody with the ability for critical thinking skills, it makes you sound deceptive when you pretend that he doesn't have a reasonable reason for being for doing this. I'm not saying he's doing the right thing. I don't know. You know, I don't know. Like, as far as you know, Russia's concerned, because that's what his concern would be. You know, his power, his leadership, or whatever it is. Like, I'm not, you know, a Trump fan or a Putin fan, but just stop lying and pretending that he doesn't have a good reason for going into Ukraine, which is he didn't want them joining NATO. This is an irrational behavior. Like, he's seen what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. He sees what America just went nuts in Iraq and Afghanistan and then Libya and tried to do in Syria and was heading towards Iran. America was just glomming onto resources and putting military bases in all these countries. And, you know, we saw what happened, right? Like, all these illegal wars. Nobody was crying for the 1 million civilians killed in Iraq. There's no American news channels covering any of that, right? Covering the plight of all these, you know, children and people being killed and exploited and having to leave the country. I mean, 1 million civilians died, right? No, those wars were justified, even though everyone knows they failed. And we, you know, like, we all see what happened, right? And, you know, the bottom line, it's about the economy.
Genius. He's not behaving like a savvy genius. He's irrational. And he's behaving irrationally because he's fallen into what I call the dictator trap, which is
He calls it the dictator trap.
The fact that to stay in power, dictators do things that ultimately and eventually cause their downfall because they construct fake realities. And then they
Anybody we know, like, that's not happening here in America, by the way.
make mistakes based on their belief in those fake realities. When you think about what
Fake realities. Like, there's no fake realities going on here in America.
Vladimir Putin gets on a daily basis in terms of information, he's been in power for 2 decades. People who cross him lose power and might see their families fall off balconies.
So he's implying here that Putin killed those people, right? And that's not being a journalist. Like, you can say, wow, it seems odd, like very coincidental that all of Putin's enemies are falling off of balconies or something like that, right? But when you say that in America, you're a conspiracy theorist. Where's your proof? Let's get Snopes. Fact check, right? This is the hypocrisy here.
It's a very, very dangerous situation to be in. And I think the real question here...
Who are all these clowns? It's Morning Joe.
As you pose, is what's next? So I think that there's going to be a pariah status for Russia for the foreseeable future, and I hope that's the case. I think it's important also...
So they did this with Trump. They did it with Saddam Hussein. They did it with Gaddafi. They're doing it now with Putin. They're doing it with, like, individual groups that are now considered the bad guys, right? And they've done this, you know, I've seen this my whole life. That they, you know, they take a group of people, they take a, you know, a leader, they take a country, they take a politician, they take, you know, Kanye West, another example of this, right? Where they just say, all right, you don't go along with what we're saying, you're a bad guy, and then they just cover them like he's evil because he's not a part of the movement, the club. And that shows you're in a, in a totalitarian dictatorship where anybody who goes against what I call the beast is ostracized. I'm not saying any of these guys are heroes, but they're certainly not worse than any of these, politicians like Nancy and JoJo Magoo and Kamala. They're not any worse than the Hollywood celebrities or any of these, horrible people, right? Like there's horrible people on both sides, but there's only one group that's, that's labeled as horrible, and JoJo Magoo is some kind of hero. And when you know it, he's not, then it's hard to tune into the news media or listen to a Hollywood shill because it's like 8th grade or elementary school level lies, right? It's just like hard to believe people get sucked into this stuff. So while I was editing this video, Voldemort Zelensky, came out and he kind of called JoJo Magoo out about being a world leader, and that was covered by CNN. So I wanted to put that in here because there's some funny bits. Let's start with this thing first.
We're sorry we weren't able to give you a warning prior because we did not know what was going to be in that video, but...
No, you said video. Don't try to correct it. You said video. You said video, bro. Stand by your words. Don't cave on video. What are you, hunting wabbits? Video.
Biggest appeals, one that he has been making for weeks now, which is to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine. And that was the message after those graphic images played in that video, even though just yesterday, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, said it is still their position that they are not going to do that because President Biden has said he believes that would get the United States into World War III.
So Nancy Pelosi yesterday, I think it was, and JoJo Magoo today both said World War III. They're literally saying World War III out loud because we're on the pathway to World War III. And, regardless of whether you think it's all whatever, just some sort of, it's going to be a real war, right? Whether you think it's fake or not, it's going to be real, and there's going to be real consequences. And I'm going to get to JoJo Magoo because my next piece was supposed to be about him doing an epic gaffe, but he's going to give a press conference, sometime today. Maybe by the time I get this video up on YouTube, it'll already happen. And he's going to say whether he supports a no-fly zone, but he thinks if they do a no-fly zone, that's the beginning of World War III.
But you did see President Zelensky say there, if you're not going to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine, at least give us more aircraft, at least give us more of these air defense systems.
Sure, we'll give you whatever you want. Just give you. You don't have to pay for them. Like, what if they're free? When we make them, they're free. It doesn't cost, I don't know, American taxpayers or anything. What do you want? You want more planes? You want tanks? You want a submarine? I don't know. You want to build you a new house? What do you want, foot massage? Sure, we'll just give them to you. Here's another guy who's, these guys don't think about whether the American people want to fund this war. We don't want to fund it. We don't, this isn't going to come back to us. Right now it is in terms of inflation. And, the inflation that was already there, I'm going to cover that in a moment.
From a pragmatic perspective, getting the simple and effective combat systems into the hand of the Ukraine soldier, and they are drilling, absolutely annihilating Russian tanks and Russian equipment with it. And I think that's what we still got to continue to do and keep pouring that level of equipment into the hands of the Ukraine soldier.
Just pour it in. Maybe they can make a deal with the Afghans that we left $80 billion worth of equipment on, training and all these things there. Maybe we can just have them maybe the Afghans will maybe the Taliban will give the Ukrainians all that leftover surplus equipment. Let's just give it away. Let's just, doesn't cost us anything. Hey, Hunter, when he was a crackhead, got a great lucrative job in the Ukraine. Let's pay him back. Give him $20 billion, as much equipment as they want. Just give him a wish list and, a blank check and let him go to town.
Caitlin Collins from the White House. You heard Caitlin Collins, that direct appeal, really his final words were an appeal to President Biden himself. And while he was grateful for U.S. support so far, a continuing theme has been Ukraine wants more, needs more. Tell us how the administration's going to respond to that.
That last line was so compelling from President Zelensky.
It wasn't so compelling. um, because this is what they're saying. You see there below them, it says, Zelensky to U.S. Congress. Today, to be the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace, right? And we'll listen to it, and it didn't come out like that. I'm not sure if he, was attempting to say that, and they just reworded it for him, or he was struggling so much with his English. But he's saying, hey, you guys got to either do a no-fly zone or give us a bunch of stuff. That's leadership. No, that's like, this isn't, we're not Santa Claus, bro.
Speaking directly to President Biden, making clear to switch to English for those final remarks that he was making to Congress, and calling on him in this broader sense of what this means, trying to personalize this.
I see no sense in life if it cannot stop the death. And this is my main mission as the leader of my people, great Ukrainians. And as the leader of my nation, I'm addressing the President Biden. You are the leader of the nation, of your great nation. I wish you to be the leader of the world. Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace.
Well, he said it, but it wasn't some epic line, right? Your delivery sucks, bro. I mean, for a guy who wants all this stuff from America, you could take a few more English classes, right? But watch the Senate. Watch the Senate just go off here. And I just want to say before we get into that he's saying to be the leader of the world, you got to be the leader of peace. So put up a no-fly zone and give us a bunch of frickin' weapons, bro, you leader of peace. Give us a bunch of shit to kill, Russians with, right? That's what... be the leader of peace. That's why I was saying that Babaji, the second master of the Heartfulness system, when he wrote to the UN, they wanted him to join the UN. He said no, and he said they want to create peace with weapons, right? With an army. There's no peace army, right? There's no peace weapons. No, they're a deterrent. Yeah, they're a deterrent. Yeah, you're never going to use them. They're a threat of mass destruction. But anyways, watch these these senators.
Being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Thank you. Slava Ukraine.
Glory to Ukraine.
Woo! Glory to Ukraine. Woo! Woo! Standing up. Woo! Get up, motherfucker. Woo! That was great. Let's watch that again. So this guy wasn't standing up. Watch Nancy. And so Nancy's gonna go. Nancy's gonna look down. Get up, MNFer. Okay, I forgot. Hey, woo, woo, woo! I got up. Woo! Get over on your feet. This guy's a real hero. Woo! Look at this hero. Yes, thank you so much. I didn't know. Yes, thank you for this. Thank you very much. I didn't know I'm such a hero. Hey, thank you. Bye. Bye, U.S. Bye. We can't stop applauding. Come back, Zelensky. We love you. You're such a hero, Zelensky. Come back. Don't go away. Come back, you hero. You come back. So just briefly here, I want to go to the JoJo Magoo gaff. But they make heroes subjectively. Like in reality TV shows, they can take any character. They have certain roles and archetypes, right? That in a reality TV show, people have to fill. There's always a villain or multiple villains. And the villains are the ones that people tune into to root against. Once a villain leaves a reality TV show, it's no longer interesting to watch, right? And there was some video a long time ago where they took a lot of footage of people in a reality situation as like an experiment. And then they, changed the roles. They could give anybody the hero role or the good guy role or the villain role or any of these roles based in all the footage. They just edited it in a way to make the person look like a hero. And that's what's happening here. Putin's the villain and Zelensky's the hero. And it could be reversed. If America wanted to reverse it, they could totally reverse it, right? And people just suck it up. Oh, yeah, this guy's the hero. They told me. They told me this guy's the hero and Putin's the villain and Trump's the villain. It's just a matter of the way that you frame the narrative. So just in terms of segue, I added this piece. So this is why I'm doing the editing. Zelensky's speech came up, and I saw this on news, and I decided to include it. But what I was talking about right before, or what the guy on MSNBC on Morning Joe was talking about, was how Putin, was caught in this dictator trap, and he was constructing his old reality. So this is why there's this in this segue to the JoJo piece. Good thing we have a great sane leader here who doesn't believe in fake realities.
But there's been a little change in the arrangement of who's on the stage because of the First Lady's husband contracting COVID. But
that's you. You're the First Lady's husband. That's you. You just said you contracted COVID. You're on the stage and you have COVID, but of course, he didn't mean that.
Because of the First Lady's husband contracting COVID. But look at this room and what you see. Pardon?
That's you, dummy. Hey, it's you, dummy. You're talking about yourself.
And I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
That's right. She's fine. It's me. That's not together. The second lady, the first gentleman.
He's talking about Dougie Fresh, Kamala Harris's husband, has contracted COVID. So he's talking about Dougie Fresh. And speaking of which, I was talking about how we need more Rob Kardashian. We always need more Dougie Fresh. Maybe they can be in a show, Rob and Doug. Rob Kardashian and Dougie Fresh can have their own reality TV show.
How about that?
How about that? Like what, right? How about that, Joe? You just misspoke again. Like when you said Putin was going to invade himself, right? Something that you'd like to do regularly. Here's something from MSNBC you wouldn't think you'd see, but they said it anyway. Joe Biden won't get away with blaming Vladimir Putin for inflation. Inflation has been rising for 6 months, well before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Republicans are trying to make sure voters don't forget. Well, they want to blame Russia. There's a meme going around saying that America printed $8 trillion, just bailout money, not really printed, but whatever, right? And it's trying to blame Russia for inflation. Like you can't, all this bailout money that came out of the government's being looted. This is the big looting. I said whoever won the presidency was going to be in charge of the American, fire sale, right?
To tell you about this morning, just moments ago, the latest report on inflation was released. It was higher than expected. Increases in gasoline, housing, and food were the largest contributors to that rise.
CNBC reporter Bertha Coombs is here to help us understand these numbers. Hey, Bertha, good morning.
Help you understand these numbers. We're fucked. Technically speaking, we're fucked. So I had a whole piece on the economy I was going to do, but I've been talking about that for a while. And then I was going to read some comments and get in some more stuff about the truth community, but my voice has been not great since I made that 5-hour video. So I have to limit how much I talk. And then I want to do a follow-up video on the Justin Bieber's, Hailey Bieber's blood clot, because there's been a new development in people. They've come up with the answer. And then I want to get into a little bit more with Kyrie Irving and some of the woke hypocrisy. So I'm going to do that on my other channel, hopefully. And I have a follow-up video about the Heartfulness YouTube channel. So I'm going to end the video here. And I'll get to all these other things, tomorrow or the next day. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.